everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Practice Pulse podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Howard Polansky. Good morning and welcome, Doctor. How are you?
I'm doing great, Doc. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We're recording right after Thanksgiving, so our bellies are full and our mind is very active. So this is the best time to record, in my opinion, because now we're very fresh. Um, a little bit about Dr. Polansky. He is a former Navy dentist turned private practitioner. And in 2018, after a life-changing event, he decided to empower others through financial education. That is really, really important. He teaches innovative financial strategies to help individuals save on interest, increase cash flow, and reclaim years of time by making money and by working more efficiently. Howard is passionate about guiding people out of financial fear and into financial freedom. Welcome, welcome.
So I appreciate the intro, Doc. Thank you. It sounds like you're talking about someone else, really.
I completely understand what you're talking about, Howard. Because when people introduce me, I'm like, oh, wow, is that really me? So tell me about your journey from dentistry to finance. Wow, that's must have been an interesting journey.
Yeah, it was. Let me just I'll get right to the story that changed everything. So I tell people now, sometimes life leaves you little clues, and other times life hits you with a two by four. So my two by four moment, as you mentioned in the intro, was Sunday morning, Memorial Day weekend, 2018. Jaden, my older son, is 12 years old. I'm sitting next to his bed. He realizes I'm there and he says, Dad. His voice is barely above a whisper. Yeah, buddy. I lean over the bed. I put my ear over his mouth to make sure I can hear him. And he says three words I'll never forget. Am I dying? 12 days earlier, Jaden came home with a stomach ache. 3 days after the stomach ache, we were in the ICU at the Children's Hospital having emergency surgery. It was appendicitis that turned septic, 29 days in the hospital, 19 of them in the ICU, 8 straight days of sedation because he went to the operating room 5 times. After they take the tube out of his throat, they give him methadone and morphine to bring him down from the drugs he was on. So my 12-year-old son looks like a heroin addict coming down from a high. And the very first question he will only ask me are those three little words. Am I dying? My first breath was, did I hear him correctly? My second breath was, do not lose it right now. And I look him in the eyes and I say, no, you're not dying. You've had prayers from thousands of people all around the world and you're going to be just fine. He looks at me. He knows I'm telling him the truth. He closes his eyes to get more rest. I walk outside the room and then I broke. I was already miserable. I was burnt out from dentistry and I was taking it out on everyone around me. But when I broke, only one thought seared into my mind. If life is this fragile and I'm unhappy with the path that I'm on, burn the ships. It's over. That's what I did. I sold my practice. September of 2018, after 16 years of practice, I just walked away.
Wow, that's a powerful story. It takes a lot of guts, a lot of gumption, and a lot of um, what do you say, decisions that you take in. Sometimes it takes hard moments to help you make hard decisions. And, it's very, really heartwarming to see that you listen to your heart. Sometimes it's just a trigger, right, Howard? You need a small, tiny trigger to understand where you have been sitting in, right? What kind of life you have been leading, and if this is what you want, is this what you ever wanted? And some of us as dentists, let's be honest, never find our triggers. We ignore our triggers, or we say we're too scared to give in to our triggers.
And Doc, I think it's that last point. And let me just clear up one thing because I have left people hanging where they're like, is your son okay now? So let me address that. The answer is he is fine. Everything worked out. 18 inches less of intestines, some really cool scars. And he is now in college, loving life. Everything's great. But I want to get back to that last point that you made. And it is, we have invested as dentists so much time, so much energy, so much sacrifice, so much financial burden for choosing this path to go down. And then you get there and you're just, and I know that there was a lot of dentists that are just like, is this it? Like, is this really what I did everything for? And then you are wrapped up in the identity of that. And I will tell you, when I walked away, that 1 year afterwards was miserable because I had nothing. Like, I just, what am I at this point? Like, I had no idea. And to just sit there with your own thoughts is the worst feeling imaginable in terms of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with the rest of my life. And I think that is the greatest fear that dentists have, to say, there's got to be something more, but I am just too afraid and I am too deep in debt to be able to switch to anything else.
No, I understand. I mean, you had an identity crisis before the COVID forced all of us as dentists to have an identity crisis. See, in my opinion, you were ahead of the game, Howard.
Good, bad, or otherwise. And it's a moment that I pray no one ever has to go through. It was brutal. The whole ordeal was brutal. As fantastic as everything turned out to be, I don't wish it on anyone. It was a miserable experience where you really question a lot about what does life mean.
Yeah, completely understand where you're coming from because, like I said, you forced yourself to go through it, and a lot of situations it's forced a lot of dentists to go through it a couple of years later. So,
Yeah.
it's miserable either way, right? When you have an identity crisis, and you don't know who you are to become, it is definitely one of the most pivotal things in anybody's journey. And of course, as us as dentists, it is because that's the one thing that we've been working towards since we were 18. And how do we sometimes even acknowledge that fact that this is not who we were meant to be, right? Or who we are meant to be? This can be very difficult. Well, tell me a little bit about mastering money movement, right? You've developed a system for making money flow more efficiently. So, can you explain how this helps people?
So, yeah, I think it'll help in terms of continuing the story once my son was out, once I'm transitioning out. I'm sitting with another dentist over lunch, and he asked me an obvious question: how are you walking away? When he asked me that question, I didn't know he was going through a double divorce.
Mm,
Not only was he getting divorced from his spouse was also a dentist and they owned the practice 50-50. And so there was money bleeding everywhere. And I had no idea when he asked me the question, but I made one dumb comment which changed everything for me. I kind of figured out how to make money move. Now, he gave me that Scooby-Doo look. I tried to explain it that day. I just didn't do a good job. But a few weeks later, I get the next statement in the mail for my house payment. I take a picture of it literally as a joke and send it to him and said, hey, take a look at this. My house payment was $24.19. And he writes back, I see it. I don't understand how you can have a $24 house payment. I'm buying a condo next month. Will you be my coach? Sure. He was going to do the 30-year mortgage. He paid off the condo in 8 months. And so he tells his business partner, I tell a friend of mine what happened. They become the next two people I help. And now I listen to my heart instead of my head, where it's like the way you're going to help people is by teaching people. I call it the new rules of finance, but the system around it so that they can get to their freedom sooner, however they're defining freedom. And the whole crux of this is understanding how to utilize lines of credit effectively. Because once you start to understand that this is an open-ended tool, yes, it is debt. Yes, it does have a higher interest rate. But once you understand that I can go from a variable payment, from these fixed payments that are in my life that I'm trying to get around every single month, once you can see how the switch on this, now all of a sudden you play the game differently. And that's how we pay things off faster and then remove those fixed payments from our lives so that literally everything just becomes discretionary at that point. And however you decide to live, that's on you. Again, that's your definition of freedom. I'm not here to stop that. I'm just here for you to get there faster for it.
Mm. Wow, that's so powerful. That's so cool. So how does can you break it down that how for the listeners that how does this uh the line of credit, what is the truth behind it?
Yeah,
Give us
I
a
mean,
sneak peek. I know you can't share all the secrets because
no,
now I'm so
no,
intrigued.
no, I have no problem in terms of sharing the secrets. The issue is like trying to do this on a podcast. Sometimes it can get a little bit confusing. But here's the idea. All right, let's just use easy numbers. Let's say that you bring in $20,000 a month into your personal household. Okay. And we rearrange things so that now your expenses are 12,000 a month. We're going to utilize the line of credit as our checking account because a line of credit's an open-ended tool. If I put the money into a line of credit today, I can pull the money out tomorrow. Versus if I put extra payments against my mortgage, I can't get the money back out. It's a one-way street. It's a titanium safe where you don't have the key. And it's no surprise that a mortgage and an amortization table have the same root word as mortuary and mortician. The system is set up for you to make payments until the day you die, or you're going to die trying. But if you now have this open ended tool, you're going to put all of your money into the line of credit because you can access it. So let's just say that we had $50,000 outstanding on a line of credit. You pay yourself on the first of the month to 20,000. You put the entire 20,000 into the line of credit. And now you're lowering the balance to 30,000. And you're only being charged interest on 30,000, not on the original 50 and not on however big the line of credit is. It's only the outstanding balance. And we leave that balance low until the expenses are due. Credit cards, house payment, car payments, whatever, and we take that 12,000 out of the line to pay all those expenses off. And so you're kind of just jumping the debt, but the surplus in our example, $8,000 is not in an emergency fund. It's sitting inside the line of credit. And that's how you pay this down quickly.
Mhm,
So $50,000 and we have an $8,000 cash flow, we're paying that 50,000 off in like 6 months.
mhm,
Whereas If it was, let's just say, a car, you're probably doing that over 7 years at $700 a month. Would you rather pay off the car in 6 months or 7 years? That's the game. That's high level in terms of how you play the game. But now we can recycle that money and then attack the next debt and the next debt, the next debt. And so that's how we can just eliminate these things far faster than people imagine.
That's so powerful. That little nugget is like the amount of money you can save just on interest, uh, and divvying up the principal like that and bringing down the main amount, significantly lower the one that you're paying interest on. That is such a big save because I mean that is huge. So thank you for sharing that because a lot of us know we have this option, but we just don't take it because I think we just don't understand the ins and outs of divvying up money like that or putting money into the line of credit versus just taking a loan for that much with having to pay interest on a higher amount. So that's a substantial amount of savings just in that. So thank you for sharing that with the listeners. That's amazing. Um,
Yeah. I mean, here, I'll give another example literally that I was analyzing this morning. This is someone, he's a financial advisor. So he reaches out to me and he's like, I need to see how these numbers work. So I literally break it down for him. And I said, if we put a 15,000, so his mortgage is under 4%, everyone's like, that's a great deal. Why would I ever want to pay this off early? Well, he's still early in the mortgage. I said, if we put a $15,000 chunk against your mortgage right now, you're going to save 2 years of payments. You're going to save $26,000 in interest over those 2 years. And by taking that 15,000 through the line of credit, you're going to pay it off in 3 to 4 months and it will cost you $200.
mm,
Do you want to spend $200 with a higher interest rate product to save 26,000? I think most people would say yes, that kind of
yeah.
makes sense. But everyone's just hung up on, the interest rate's under 4%. I don't care about the interest rate. I
Mhm.
care about like how much is it actually really actually costing you?
Right. Yeah. So true. So true. So you talk about rewriting bank rules. Now I'm totally intrigued.
Oh, so before you weren't, got it.
You said that the banks they set up a game board, right? That
Yeah.
benefits them. We all know that. How or what's the least important factor they want us to focus on? And how can we flip the script?
Yeah. So the least important factor, which I already kind of touched on, is the interest rate.
Hmm.
And because like that's what everyone is just like, what's the interest rate? What's the interest rate? It's like, no. So Doc, here's kind of a simple thing. Imagine I kind of drew out a tic-tac-toe board, all right? And I have at the top on two of the columns 4% and 14%. You go into a bank and you say, I'd like to take out a loan. They say, great, we have these two products. One's at 4, one's at 14%. Which one would you like? Yeah,
Pretty
it's not a
obvious.
trick question. It's not a trick question. You're going to take the 4%,
Yeah.
but you need two more pieces of information. The first one is you're going to take the loan out for a year. The second one is you're going to take the loan out for $100.
Hmm.
All right. So at the end of the year, if you took the 4%, you owe 104 back. If you took the 14, you owe 114. Do you really care? You don't care about the $10 at this stage of your life. You really don't care about the $10. Even if it was $1,000, the 1040 versus 1140, the $100, you just like, just don't bother me. I really, it's not going to make or break you. But if the balance is $100,000, now all of a sudden this starts to get meaningful. And so, just with that simple example, I just want people to understand it's not the interest rate that matters. What is the balance the interest rate is applied to that matters? And so, if we can manipulate the balance of the debt, Bring that from 100,000 to 50,000 to 10,000 to 1,000 fast, AKA by utilizing an open-ended tool like a line of credit. Now all of a sudden the interest rate becomes meaningless. I'm not saying it's not a factor. It's just, it's not the factor everyone makes it out to be. And so once you can wrap your brain around that, that's when all of a sudden, boom, you're just like, I wish I knew this 15 years ago. And the reason why banks will never tell you this is because what are you doing? You're taking money out of their pocket. What would be their motivation to let you know that this exists? There is none.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Wow, that is so powerful. I wish, dude, I'm gonna go right after this. I'm gonna go check out all my liabilities and assets and see what I can do to manipulate the system.
Right? If I help one people, if I help one person change the thought on how money moves through your life, then this was worth it.
Yeah.
I don't care if
Um,
people use me or I don't care if people use me or not. If they're just like, there's got to be a different game. I just never knew that I never knew the new rules.
mhm.
And now they're willing to explore this, then we've done our job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's only takes one. It's the power of one, right?
Yep.
If you can influence or change the life of one person, it's all worth it. It is all worth it. So tell me about navigating risks, right? Every financial strategy comes with risks. What are the potential pitfalls in your approach, and how can we
Yeah.
avoid them?
So there's four major risks to this. Number one is you have to have the cash flow. Okay. This is just math. There's no magic voodoo to this. If your income is not greater than your expenses on a consistent basis, this will not work. That's not to say you can't go negative if you need a new roof, need a new car, whatever repairs. I'm just saying on a consistent basis. Okay. That's just math. Number two is the line of credit, the rate is variable. All
Mhm.
right, which scares people. But once you get over that fear and realize the interest rate really doesn't matter, that becomes a minor point to this. Number three, a line of credit can get closed. I have not had anyone on the personal side where that has happened. I do have one person right now where their business line of credit got closed and they're working on getting that back open. Um, but because everyone goes back to 2008, 2009, I thought they were closing lines of credit everywhere. The answer is yeah, not really. So you only hear the headlines from Mace Bank and Hell's Cargo and Crank of America and Capital One because they're the national banks.
Right.
But when I have spoken to regional banks, community banks, credit unions, what did you do during COVID? And if you've been an employee with this bank or credit union since 2008, 2009, what did you do back then? The answer more often than not is we didn't do a thing as long as people were being good stewards of their line.
Mm.
So the people that got their lines of credit closed were maxing out everything, not paying anything back. And so the bank was protecting themselves. But for the people who were actually paying on time and using this as you're supposed to, nothing happened. The final risk, the most concerning risk of all of this, is that you raid the piggy bank. I've got an acquaintance, and I use that term very loosely. At what point the husband was part of the Watch of the Month Club, and they still have a car lease payment of $1,300 a month. Now, they do just fine. But if I got them in a corner and you ask them, why are you spending on this stuff? It
Mhm.
doesn't take long to get to the truth, to impress our circle of friends. And so the problem with that is
Usually
that there
that's the
is
case.
no, yeah, there's no end game to that. And so if I showed this couple the system, they would start the system, they would raid the piggy bank, and they come back and say, Howard, this doesn't work. And I just look at them and say, no, you're just an idiot. You're an idiot that happens to make a lot of money, but you're still an idiot. All right. And so, Doc, and whoever's in the audience, you better than I know you. And if
Mm.
this idea of now having access to a giant wad of cash, your next immediate thought is, I'm going to go buy my next Lamborghini, then we've got a problem. Unless you already have the cash flow that you can purchase the Lamborghini, this is going to be an issue. And I have seen this play out a couple of times with my clients where I'm just like, I'm not here to be a Dave Ramsey. I am
Mhm.
not going after every expense in your line in your budget and saying, what is this for? What is this for? That's not the game that I play. I'm playing a high level game to optimize how you can play this far faster, but you do have to have some common sense. You do have to be a good steward.
Mm.
And if you know that you're not, don't even reach out because this will
Yeah.
be a disaster in your hands.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, you have to have some amount of discipline, I think, in your life before you can even put into place other financial variables. If there is no discipline, there will be no success.
Yeah. And there is, you're 100% correct. And we can have some wiggle room.
Hmm.
And so here's what I mean is that this is not supposed to be a militant exercise. So one of my clients, he works in the insurance space. When we first started, 28 years left on the house, 5 years left on the truck, could be debt free in 3 years. And he reached out to me a couple months ago. He's like, hey, looks like we're debt free next May. So 4 years, because as he put it, we were a bit irresponsible. And I wrote him back. I said, you may have been a bit irresponsible, but let's put this in context. You had some massive health issues as a family where your 10-year anniversary trip you had to take in year 12. That's how bad things were.
Hmm.
And then I told you to double your 10-year anniversary trip, double
Hmm.
the budget. What was supposed to be 10 days in Italy then became 3 weeks between Italy and Greece. Amazing pictures, life experience that they're never going to forget. And their debt free date went from 3 years to 4.
Hmm.
So we're still 24 years ahead of schedule. But as I kind of said at the end of the text, is just don't be a lot irresponsible with this.
Hmm.
I want people to be able to not have to be forced into the either or decision. It's an and both.
Hmm. Hmm.
Take the trip and know that you can pay it back,
Yep.
but have the experience just because we don't know what life's going to throw at us.
Right.
This is not a mathematical equation. I have just heard some crazy stuff from clients. Like one of my clients, dentist, solo practice, and they were like, hey, guess what happened to me 3 months ago? And I'm just like, I don't know, COVID? They're like, no, 2 ruptured aneurysms and a heart attack.
Oh my gosh.
They're younger than me, and I'm not 80 years old. And I'm like, holy hell, never would have expected that.
Right.
I mean, so yeah, they're like, yep, just had brain surgery after my trip to Italy.
Oh my gosh.
This is why I do what I do, is because this stuff is going to come up and we need the financial flexibility to not have to freak out, to not make irrational decisions, and just give ourselves the grace and the space because we know we have access to a giant wad of cash that is going to give us the time to take care of the really important stuff and say, we'll come back to the money part. But I know we've got plenty of cash cushion that we do not have to freak out today about it.
Right. That is very, very, very important and powerful. Thank you for sharing that, Howard. I mean, the listeners need to know that there is a way to handle the curveballs that life throws at them without feeling like they're drowning, whether it's drowning in debt, drowning in fear, drowning in liabilities, both personal and professional. They, if financially they are able to understand that there are ways to navigate this, then it makes it a little bit easier, especially when you go through things personally and professionally, that you are able to navigate them a little bit better and a little bit easier once you have some financial freedom. So, I mean, really, thank you for what you do because it's really, really important. All of us dentists, at some point in our lives have gone through those, oh, what now moments, and honestly, having somebody that you can reach out to who understands your pain, your problems, and what it takes to run a dental office, as well as sometimes being the sole bread owner of a family and with the responsibilities and the not only to your family but to your patients and then you and to your staff, and then you wonder how you're going to make it all happen and without having a safety net. And you're able to provide strategies in the department of finding a safety net when you need it most. I mean, that is really, really, really important and powerful. So thank you for doing that, Howard. If our listeners want to reach out to you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so the easiest way is www.financiallyled.com. So LED, which is kind of a play on words because this is a three-step system. Lift the burden from fixed debt payments, expand your cash reserves, deploy the extra dollars into other assets.
Wow,
That's
that's
what that's all
amazing.
about. If you want to reach out to me, you can literally text me 512 and I'll be happy to share the information, be happy to do a free analysis because even if you decide to do this on your own, it's just nice to know what's possible. And if you want someone to just be able to hold your hand to say, I think I got this, but I don't want to screw this up because you can screw this up pretty royally, then that's what I'm here for too. So either way, it is just a gift and a pleasure that I can share this and share the message with your audience today. Thank you so much, Doc.
Well, thank you so much, Doc. This has been amazing having you because you bring such a breath of fresh air to our podcast world where we're learning a little bit about financial freedom. And that is something that weighs heavily on all our minds. It is the one thing that can also contribute to burnout. And so it's really, really important the work that you're doing in getting us as dentists to a path of freedom, financial freedom, and setting us up for success. And this success is set up for not just when we are practicing, but even beyond. As a lot of our dentists or listeners even approach, uh, what to do after they sell their practice, their retirement years, how to make those fruitful. So there's a lot of strategies behind financial planning, and you provide some of those really essential strategies. So, especially coming from the fact that you've been through it yourself, that really makes a real difference. So, thank you for doing what you do. Thank you for sharing your wisdom on our podcast. And I'm sure there will be a ton of listeners wanting to take you up on that free analysis. So watch out. Your phone's gonna go zing zing zing.
That's what I'm here for. I just feel blessed that I mean dentistry was not the right path. If it was, we wouldn't be talking, but it just was not the right path. I'm fortunate and lucky enough to have stumbled upon what is the right path in terms of how I can make a difference. And so It's just bizarre in terms of how the world works, but it the path is exactly as it had to be for me.
I understand. I understand. Because if you hadn't gone through the path of the first 16 years, you wouldn't uh, you wouldn't have found this path. So sometimes you have to walk through mud to find the yellow brick road.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Howard. This was a
Thank
real
you.
pleasure.